and welcome to WRPB and WRPB Studios. With me is Brian Wettlaufer, and there's always something that you have to think about, and when we think about it on our own, we usually get it wrong if we don't use a professional. Well, Brian has what I would call the secret sauce to investing. I guess that's what it would be.
Yeah, that's a pretty nice way of saying it, Wayne, actually.
Okay. Well, and it's a term I've heard before, but I just had another guy on who does something totally different than I do and you do, and he had the secret sauce for his thing.
Yeah.
And when you have somebody who has that secret sauce, that levels them from here up. So basically, you have now been doing investments for how long?
Yeah, I started trading with my paper route money, stocks, believe it or not. Yeah, 73, 74, I lost half my money in the stock market.
So like 13 cents?
Yeah, it was like, it was devastating to me, actually. But
isn't that like a learning lesson?
I'm seasoned. A lot of portfolio managers, pension fund managers, mutual fund managers, they haven't even been through a really serious bad bear market.
Yeah.
I mean, if you don't count the last one, I mean, that was really kind of an anomaly because of the fiscal response to it.
Right.
But I'm talking about an economic cycle where we're in a serious recession for a long period of time. Hasn't happened in a long time.
I'm far from rich.
Yeah.
But I have a 401k, small.
Sure.
And when I was talking to Brian, actually, it wasn't even you I was dealing with. I was actually dealing with your wife.
Yeah.
Who does my wife's hair. And I'm like, we were talking, and it was like, oh, I got this money, and it's sitting there. And I watched it go from here to here. And we were just talking, and I didn't know there were stop gaps and safety measures that you can put in place.
Yeah, so a lot of people don't understand that. I just want to back up a second about something that you mentioned or referred to. The trouble is that, in my mind, the secret sauce concept is a good principle to talk about for a moment. In my mind, okay, the problem is that a great amount of money is spent in the financial services industry packaging solutions for retail consumption. Okay? Very, very little resources are devoted to teaching people how to manage their own money. It's not taught in schools, elementary, secondary, high school. They don't teach kids about credit, finance, how do you apply for a loan. They used to teach you how to balance a checkbook, but we don't need to do that anymore.
They teach you how to cook.
Yeah, well, the thing is that there's a great need for that. And part and parcel to that need is a very important measure that must be taken to keep costs down of your investments. And, of course, the industry wants to elevate those costs while they're talking about lowering them. So,
okay, I don't want to give too much of your secret sauce because you're going to be coming on board and doing your own show.
I'm excited about that.
Okay, but this is just a couple of pieces that interest me.
Okay.
So I have $100. I'm just picking a figure.
Sure.
And I go to another investment company, and they charge me $10.
Okay.
And now I make another $100.
Okay.
And now my $10 is not $10 anymore. Now they're going to charge me more. Is that how that breaks down?
Yeah, well, basically they charge for a percentage of the account value.
Okay.
So if the value of the account generally grows most of the time, 85% of the time we're in a bull market, your account is increasing in value, and so is your cost of receiving the advice from those people.
So what makes yours different?
I don't do it that way. I charge a flat fee, and that flat fee stays the same. It never goes up. It's fixed cost.
So if I start with my $100 and you charge $5,
Yep.
when my $100 becomes $10 million, you're still charging that $5?
$5.
Okay. So when you go to an investment person, you're going hopefully with the positive thought that this person is going to help you grow that investment.
True.
And if you're growing it big, all you're doing is making... Not that it's bad to make other people money. Okay, don't get me wrong.
No.
Okay, but you want to maintain as much of what you got as you can.
Right.
And it gets to be big numbers. I'm talking about $100 here, but we're talking about 500,000, a million, 5 million, 8 million. We're talking, those are big numbers when you're getting a percentage.
Absolutely right. And the other part to that's absolutely true, Wayne, and I think it's important to note also, if you take an example of a qualified plan, like a 401k you mentioned, anything that has a consistent amount of money being deposited into the account Now we add that growth and the consistent increase in the cost of delivering advice to that growth, on top of the general market advance, which generally occurs. So when you add those two factors together, money being deposited out of a person's paycheck into a 401k, why is that subject to an increasing percentage?
Oh my God, I didn't even think of that.
Well, think about that.
So these are the things that you guys are going to get from what you are going to teach them.
We teach them how to convert those percentage costs to a fixed cost. And I always was taught that anytime you take a variable expense and convert it to a fixed expense, that advances the other person's interest.
Oh, I can tell you right now, I'm going through a scenario, and these people can't give me a cost because it's not a fixed cost. I said, well, how much? Give me that. I can't. Well, but I can't. It changes. Well, I don't want to do business with you because I don't want something open-ended.
Right.
Okay? That makes zero sense to me. Okay? That gives my total control of what I have to somebody else.
That's correct. And that is part of the psychology of the way things are done out there that does not serve the little investor or even the medium to high net worth individual, is that they're not being, first of all, taught anything. They're being autopiloted. Number two, they're told this is the way it's done, this is how we charge, this is the way the industry charges. The fact is that it really starts to, I mean, these are guys with gold cufflinks, drive brand new Mercedes. They belong to the country club. Reminds me of the old story of Fred Schwed, who wrote a book called Where Are the Customers' Yachts? Right? It's on my website. So back in the old halcyon days, where a bunch of boats riding on anchor in New York's harbor, the tourist with the tour guide says, there are the brokers and bankers' yachts. And the tourist said, where are the customers' yachts?
You wouldn't even think that. But I don't want to go into too much because I really want them to stay tuned. Because when you come on doing your piece and your show, they're going to learn a bunch of things. I mean, I sat in my office with you for about 40 minutes. And I got to tell you, in 40 minutes, probably 30% stuck in my mind and the rest went over my head. Now, that's good and bad. The good about it is I learned 30%. The bad is that I didn't know 70%, which now I'm going to be able to learn.
Right. And that's what the series of shows will do that I'm really excited about having your help with. We'll just teach people a little bit as we go, so not to overwhelm them. It's not anything that's brain surgery. It's just some basic concepts that they need to understand where the bodies are buried in the industry. People don't come and tell you that secret sauce concept because that's where they make most of their money, and there's really no defense against that.
Before I let you go, it just struck me because you were telling me about where are the customers' yachts.
Yeah.
And I say to a bunch of people who come in here, I said, if you drove to my viewers in a Rolls Royce, they wouldn't even want to work with you. You could do the Mercedes thing, but the Rolls Royce, just because they think you're ripping them off. Okay? Because they're driving a Volvo or an Audi, which is a nice car, don't get me wrong.
Sure.
But you're driving
a Rolls Royce.
It just doesn't make any sense.
Right.
Brian, I want to thank you for coming on.
My pleasure. Thanks for
having
having me.
Guys, you got to stay tuned. We're going to keep posting about when his show is going to start, get the pieces together. If you look behind us, you will see that's your active website behind us. So you can kind of get an idea of what his website looks like. And you always want to stay tuned to WRPB. Brian, thank you so much.
Thank you, Wayne. Good to see you again.
Everybody will be right back.
My pleasure.